The artificial lights buzzed faintly above me as I rolled my cart through the empty aisles of Walmart at 2 in the morning. The familiar hum should have been comforting, but something felt different that night. The air was too still, the shadows too deep. And as I turned down the cereal aisle, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I wasn't alone. At the far end, frozen between the Cheerios and Lucky Charms, stood a woman in a faded blue dress. She hadn't moved since I entered the aisle, not to grab anything, not even to breathe. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just another late-night shopper. This was something else entirely. And what I discovered next, well, let's just say I never shop alone at night anymore. My name is Rachel, and what happened to me that night was just the beginning of a journey into the darkest corners of America as most trusted retailer. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true accounts that will make you question everything you think you know about safety in the places we visit every day. These aren't urban legends whispered around campfires or stories crafted for internet points. These are documented incidents that happen to real people, in real stores, with real consequences that continue to haunt them years later. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why some people refuse to step foot in a Walmart after dark. But before we dive into these disturbing encounters, hit that like button if you've ever felt watched while shopping alone. That feeling in your gut when something isn't right? That primal instinct that kept our ancestors alive? It's trying to tell you something. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. These are real events that happen to real people, and understanding them might just save your life. Derek thought he knew Walmart better than most people. 15 years as a long-haul truck driver had taken him to countless stores across 48 states. His routine never varied. Park the rig in the truck lot, grab his supplies, hit the road before dawn. Simple. Efficient, safe. He'd done it thousands of times without incident, treating these stops like fuel stations for his body and his truck. But on a cold November night in rural Arkansas, Derek discovered that some Walmart stores aren't quite what they seem. Some encounters can't be explained by logic or reason. The Bentonville store looked identical to every other Walmart Derek had visited. Standard blue and yellow signage glowing against the dark sky. Well-lit parking lot with the usual mix of beat-up cars and work trucks. The familiar sight of late-night shoppers trudging through automatic doors like moths drawn to artificial flame. Derek had stopped at this exact location dozens of times over the years. He knew the layout. He recognized some of the night shift employees. He even had a preferred parking spot near the garden center. Nothing had ever seemed out of place. Nothing had ever made him uncomfortable. But tonight was different. Tonight, Derek was about to encounter something that would shatter his understanding of what was possible in the mundane world of retail shopping. It started normal enough. Derek grabbed a cart, headed inside past the elderly greeter who gave him a nod of recognition. The store had that typical night shift atmosphere. Employees restocking shelves. A few scattered customers wandering the aisles. Nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. But then Derek noticed something in the automotive section that made him stop dead in his tracks. A man stood perfectly still in front of the motor oil displays. Not browsing, not comparing prices, just staring with an intensity that seemed to burn through the air itself. Derek figured maybe the guy was lost in thought, so he grabbed his items and moved on. But when Derek looked back 5 minutes later, the man hadn't moved. Not an inch. Same position. Same blank stare. That's weird, Derek muttered to himself. But people are weird. He'd seen stranger things on the road. But as Derek continued shopping, he began to notice other things that made his skin crawl. In the grocery section, a woman pushed an empty cart up and down the same aisle. Over and over. Same path, same pace, same vacant expression. Derek watched her complete this circuit 3 times while he grabbed snacks. She never stopped, never looked at products, never acknowledged his existence. Electronics section. A teenage boy standing rigid in front of televisions, head tilted at an unnatural angle, staring at the floor. Clothing section, an elderly woman touching every shirt on a rack in the exact same pattern over and over. None of them were actually shopping. They were performing something else entirely. And here's the part that still gives Derek nightmares. The employees acted like these people didn't exist. Staff walked right past them, never offering help, never making eye contact, like they were invisible. But Derek was about to discover something that would change everything. These weren't random weird customers, they were following him. Every section Derek entered, one of them appeared. Automotive man showed up in groceries. Cart woman materialized in electronics. Boy from TVs appeared near pharmacy. Always the same distance, always watching, always coordinated. Derek's hand started shaking. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered, his voice echoing strangely in the aisle. This wasn't coincidence, this was organized. He abandoned his cart and rushed toward checkout. But as he approached the registers, his worst fears were confirmed. They were all there, every single one. Standing in a loose semicircle around the checkout lanes, blocking his path to the exit. None of them moved. None of them blinked. They just stared with those empty, lifeless eyes. Derek scanned his items with trembling fingers. But as he fumbled with his wallet, something happened that made his blood turn to ice. The motor oil man opened his mouth and spoke, but no sound came out. Then the cart woman did the same. Then the boy. Then the elderly woman. All of them moving their lips in perfect synchronization, mouthing words Derek couldn't hear but somehow understood. They were saying his name, over and over. "Derek, Derek, Derek. How do you know my name?" Derek gasped, but they just kept mouthing it, their hollow eyes never blinking, never looking away. Derek grabbed his bags and ran for the doors, but as he moved, they moved too. Not toward him, together. Same eerie precision, maintaining their formation like pieces on a chessboard. And then Derek heard something that made him sprint faster than he'd run since high school football. They were all humming, the same tune, in perfect harmony. A lullaby his grandmother used to sing, a song he'd never told anyone about, a melody that should have been buried with her 20 years ago. Derek burst through the automatic doors and sprinted to his truck, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might explode. He threw his bags inside and peeled out of that parking lot with his tires screaming. But in his rearview mirror, he saw something that still haunts him today. All of them. Standing at the windows, still humming, still mouthing his name. And as his truck disappeared into the darkness, Derek swore he could still hear that lullaby playing on his radio, even though he'd never turned it on. Derek never found out what those things were. But he knows one thing for certain. They knew things about him that no stranger should know. They weren't human. Not entirely. And somewhere out there, they're still humming his grandmother's lullaby. Smash that like button if Derek's story is already giving you chills. But his encounter with the Watchers was just the beginning. What happened to Jennifer was far more personal, far more invasive, and far more dangerous than anything Derek experienced. Because unlike Derek, Jennifer couldn't just drive away from her nightmare. She worked there. Jennifer had been a customer service representative at a Walmart in Phoenix for 6 months when her life changed forever. 6 months of handling returns, dealing with complaints, navigating the typical chaos of retail work that millions of Americans know all too well. She thought she'd seen everything the job could throw at her. Angry customers demanding refunds for items they'd clearly used and abused. People trying to return obviously stolen merchandise with fake receipts. The usual parade of human behavior at its worst, filtered through the harsh white glow of customer service. But one Saturday evening in March, a customer walked up to her counter who would turn Jennifer's life into a living nightmare that continues to this day. The woman seemed ordinary at first glance. Exactly the kind of middle-aged, well-dressed customer Jennifer dealt with dozens of times every shift. Expensive handbag, carefully applied makeup, That particular brand of entitled attitude that comes with having enough money to make demands and expect them to be met. Jennifer had developed a professional smile and a patient demeanor for dealing with customers like this. Kill them with kindness, her manager always said. Make them feel heard and important, even when they're being completely unreasonable. It was just another day, just another difficult customer, just another test of Jennifer's customer service skills. But when the woman slammed her shopping bag on the counter with enough force to make Jennifer's coffee cup jump and started pulling out items for return, Jennifer noticed something that made her stomach drop. Her professional smile faltered for the first time in months. A kitchen knife with dark stains on the blade that definitely weren't from cutting vegetables. The stains had a rusty, organic quality that made Jennifer's mind race through possibilities she didn't want to consider. Towels that reeked of chemicals so strong they made her eyes water. A sharp, acrid smell that reminded her of the cleaning supplies her father used in his auto shop, but somehow more intense, more purposeful. A radio that had been torn apart and rewired with components Jennifer didn't recognize. Wires snaking through the plastic casing like veins in a dissected animal, connecting circuits that served no obvious purpose. These weren't normal returns. These weren't items that had simply failed to meet expectations or turned out to be the wrong size or color. These were tools, implements, equipment that had been used for purposes Jennifer's mind recoiled from imagining. And the woman's explanations for wanting to return them made Jennifer's blood run cold. Her hands shook as she tried to maintain her professional composure. The knife wasn't sharp enough for her needs. She said this with a casual tone that suggested she was discussing the weather. But her eyes never left Jennifer's face, watching for reactions with the intensity of a scientist observing an experiment. The towels didn't absorb the right type of liquid. What type of liquid? Jennifer wanted to ask, but was afraid of the answer. The radio didn't pick up the frequencies she was monitoring. Monitoring what? Who? Why? But here's where Jennifer's story takes a terrifying turn. It transformed her from a retail worker dealing with a difficult customer into a target being stalked by a predator who had found her perfect hunting ground. As Jennifer processed the return, trying to follow store policy while her instincts screamed at her to run, other customers in the store started reacting. She noticed them exchanging worried glances, whispering to each other, moving away from the customer service counter with the urgency of people who recognize danger even if they couldn't name it. One elderly man, a regular customer Jennifer recognized from his weekly shopping trips, approached the counter. He waited until the woman was distracted by something on her phone. Then he leaned close to Jennifer and whispered a warning that changed everything she thought she knew about her job, her safety, and the nature of the people who walked through those automatic doors every day. "Be careful with her," he said, his voice barely audible over the store's background music. "She's known around here. The police know about her, but they can't seem to stop her. She's been doing this for years." Known for what? Jennifer was about to find out. The knowledge would cost her everything she thought she knew about safety and normalcy. When Jennifer explained that store policy prevented her from accepting returns on modified items, especially items that appeared to have been used for purposes other than their intended function, the woman's carefully maintained mask of civility slipped away like makeup running in the rain. Her face twisted into something feral, something that belonged in the shadows between streetlights rather than under the bright artificial glow of customer service. She accused Jennifer of conspiracy, of being part of some vast network designed to sabotage her work. Then she did something that made Jennifer's blood freeze in her veins. Her breath caught in her throat. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. Jennifer's face from multiple angles, her name tag with its cheerful font announcing, "Jennifer, happy to help," her workstation with its computer screen and scattered paperwork. The schedule posted behind the counter showing when Jennifer would be working for the next 2 weeks. Everything. Every detail that could be used to identify her, track her, find her when she wasn't protected by the thin veneer of corporate policy and security cameras. "You'll regret this," the woman hissed, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any scream. "I know who you are now. I know where you work. And I'll find out who sent you to interfere with my work." The elderly man returned after the woman finally left. Her departure was marked by a collective sigh of relief from the other customers who had been holding their breath without realizing it. His warning was simple but chilling, delivered with the matter-of-fact tone of someone sharing information about the weather. "She's been stalking people for years. Employees, customers, anyone who crosses her or catches her attention. The police know about her, but she's careful. Never quite crosses the line far enough for them to do anything permanent. But she never forgets a face, and she never gives up once she's chosen a target." And Jennifer was about to become her latest obsession. Comment below if you're starting to understand why I never shop alone anymore. Jennifer's nightmare was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, the woman kept coming back to the store, always during Jennifer's shifts, as if she had memorized the schedule she'd photographed that first day. Always watching, always taking notes on a small pad she kept in her purse, always asking other employees questions about Jennifer's schedule, her background, her personal life. The persistence of someone conducting a thorough investigation. Then Jennifer discovered the woman had followed her beyond the store, to her college campus where she took night classes, standing in the parking lot and watching the building where Jennifer attended her accounting courses, to her apartment complex, sitting in a car across the street for hours at a time, just watching the windows of Jennifer's unit with binoculars that glinted in the streetlight, to the coffee shop where Jennifer studied on weekends, always choosing a table with a clear view of Jennifer's usual spot by the window. She was building a profile, gathering information, learning Jennifer's routines and habits with the methodical precision of someone who had done this before, many times before. And Jennifer began to understand that she wasn't dealing with a difficult customer or even a mentally unstable individual. She was being hunted by someone who had turned stalking into an art form, someone who used the familiar environment of retail stores as a hunting ground where she could blend in with normal customers while selecting her prey. Jennifer quit her job, transferred to a college across town, moved to a new apartment complex, changed her phone number, even dyed her hair, and started wearing glasses to alter her appearance. But those calculating, predatory eyes followed her everywhere, in grocery stores, at gas stations, outside her new job at a different retail chain. The woman had made Jennifer her full-time project. Distance meant nothing to someone with that level of obsession and that much free time to devote to the hunt. But if you think Jennifer's story of being stalked by a predatory customer is disturbing, wait until you hear what Marcus uncovered in the back rooms of a Louisiana Walmart. What he found hidden in the shadows wasn't just criminal activity. It was something that made him question whether he was losing his mind or stumbling into a nightmare that had been waiting for him all along. Marcus was a security guard with 10 years of experience in retail loss prevention. He thought he'd seen everything during his decade of watching shoplifters and dealing with drunk customers. But during his overnight shifts at a rural Louisiana Walmart, Marcus discovered that some secrets are buried so deep that finding them can cost you everything. It started with a sound that didn't belong. Marcus was doing his usual rounds when he heard something coming from the back storage area, a rhythmic tapping like someone typing on a keyboard. But there shouldn't have been anyone back there at 3 in the morning. The area was restricted, locked, supposedly empty until the morning shift arrived. Marcus approached the storage room and found the door slightly ajar. This was impossible because he'd checked it an hour earlier and it had been sealed tight. The tapping grew louder as he got closer, accompanied by what sounded like whispered conversations, multiple voices, coordinated, planning something. "Hello?" Marcus called out, his hand moving instinctively to his radio. "Security. Anyone back there?" The sounds stopped instantly. Complete silence. But Marcus could feel eyes watching him from the darkness beyond the door. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. His flashlight cut through the shadows. The room appeared empty, just rows of boxes and inventory like always. But something was wrong. The air felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. And then Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. Fresh footprints in the dust, multiple sets, leading deeper into the storage area where no one was supposed to go. Marcus followed the prints, his heart pounding as he moved between towering shelves of merchandise. The deeper he went, the more wrong everything felt. Boxes had been moved, rearranged into patterns that served no logical purpose. Electronics were stacked in configurations that looked almost ritualistic. And then Marcus found something that made him stop breathing. A makeshift office hidden behind a wall of toilet paper packages, computers, monitors, surveillance equipment that definitely didn't belong to Walmart. And on the screens, Marcus saw something that made his knees weak. Live feeds from inside people's homes, bedrooms, bathrooms, dozens of them. Families sleeping, unaware they were being watched, children in their beds. And in the corner of each feed, a timestamp and an address, local addresses, people from the community. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered, reaching for his radio to call the police. But before he could key the mic, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, deliberate. Multiple people moving in perfect synchronization. Marcus spun around and found himself face to face with three figures in dark clothing. No uniforms, no name tags, just hollow eyes staring at him with the kind of cold calculation that made his survival instincts scream. "You shouldn't be here," one of them said, his voice flat and emotionless. "This area is restricted." "I'm security," Marcus stammered, backing toward the hidden office. "I have every right to—" "No," another figure interrupted. "You don't." That's when Marcus noticed something that made his blood freeze. These weren't strangers. He recognized them. The night manager, who'd always been friendly. The maintenance worker who'd helped him fix his locker. The cleaning lady who always smiled and asked about his family. People he'd worked with for months. People he'd trusted. People who'd been watching him just as carefully as they'd been watching those families on the screens. "Marcus," the night manager said, stepping closer. "You've seen too much, but we like you. You're careful, you're smart. You could be useful to us." "What is this?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Insurance," the cleaning lady replied. "Information is power. People do what you want when you know their secrets. When you can watch them sleep. When you can prove they're not as innocent as they pretend to be." Marcus realized with growing horror that this wasn't just about stolen merchandise. This was about control, blackmail, a network of surveillance that turned ordinary retail workers into puppet masters, pulling strings throughout the entire community. "Join us," the maintenance worker said, "or become one of them." He gestured toward the screens showing sleeping families. Marcus made a choice that saved his life but cost him everything else. He ran, sprinting through the storage area while voices behind him coordinated his pursuit like a military operation. He burst through the employee exit and into the parking lot, but he could hear them following, their footsteps echoing in perfect unison. Marcus made it to his car and drove straight to the police station. But when he tried to explain what he'd found, the desk sergeant gave him a look that made his stomach drop. "Marcus Rodriguez? Yeah, we've been expecting you. Got a call about an hour ago. Seems you've been acting erratically at work. Paranoid. Seeing things that aren't there. Your manager is worried about your mental health." That's when Marcus understood the true scope of what he'd discovered. The corruption didn't just involve his co-workers. It reached into law enforcement, into the community, into every institution that was supposed to protect people from exactly this kind of predatory surveillance. Marcus quit his job that night, sold everything he owned, moved 3 states away. But even now, years later, he still checks his apartment for hidden cameras. He still covers his laptop webcam with tape. He still wonders how many other retail stores are hiding similar operations. How many communities are being watched and controlled by networks of ordinary people who've decided that privacy is a luxury they can sell to the highest bidder. Because Marcus learned something that night that changed how he sees every store, every workplace, every seemingly normal interaction with people who have access to our daily routines. The watchers aren't just customers with hollow eyes or stalkers with obsessive tendencies. Sometimes they're the people we work with, the people we trust, the people who smile and ask about our families while they plan how to use our secrets against us. Hit that subscribe button if these stories are making you rethink your late-night shopping habits. We're not done yet. What connects Derek's encounter with inhuman watchers, Jennifer's stalking by a predatory customer, and Marcus's discovery of surveillance corruption isn't just that they all happened in Walmart stores. It's what they reveal about the hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface of America's most familiar retail experience. These three accounts reveal a disturbing truth about the places we trust most, the routine activities we take for granted, the assumption that bright lights and security cameras provide safety. Derek encountered something that defied explanation. Entities that looked human, but operated with a coordination and purpose that suggested they were something else entirely. Something that used the familiar environment of retail shopping as a hunting ground for purposes we can't begin to understand. Jennifer became the target of a predator who had perfected the art of using customer service interactions as a way to select and study victims. Someone who understood that retail workers are trained to be helpful and accommodating even when every instinct tells them to run. Her stalker had turned shopping into a weapon, using the social contract of customer service to gain access to personal information and create opportunities for harassment that could continue for years. Marcus uncovered criminal networks operating in plain sight, protected by corruption from within and enabled by the very infrastructure that's supposed to keep us safe. His discovery revealed that the places we shop, the systems we trust, and the people we assume are there to help us might be part of something far more sinister than we ever imagined. But here's what connects all three stories. What makes them truly terrifying and relevant to every person who's ever walked through the automatic doors of a late-night retail store. These weren't isolated incidents. They're happening right now in stores across America, while we focus on finding the best prices and getting home safely. The bright lights and familiar aisles we trust are hiding dangers we never imagined. Threats that have evolved to use our own assumptions about safety and normalcy against us. The next time you're shopping alone, especially after dark, remember these stories. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. That primal warning system that kept our ancestors alive is still trying to protect us from dangers our conscious minds haven't learned to recognize yet. If someone is paying too much attention to you, if employees are acting strangely, if you notice patterns that don't make sense, don't dismiss these observations as paranoia. Derek, Jennifer, and Marcus all noticed things that seemed wrong. In each case, their instincts were trying to warn them about dangers that were very real and very present. That woman in the cereal aisle I told you about at the beginning, the one who stood motionless between the Cheerios and Lucky Charms, with her head tilted at that unnatural angle, she's still there. Every night when the store empties out and the artificial lights buzz in the silence. Waiting, watching, listening to something the rest of us can't hear. And now I know she's not alone. They're part of something larger, something that uses the familiar spaces of American retail as a stage for activities we're not supposed to see, purposes we're not supposed to understand. Sweet dreams, and remember. Next time you think about that late-night Walmart run, maybe order online instead. Pay the delivery fee, wait until morning. Because some things are worse than paying extra for convenience. Some encounters change you in ways that never heal. If this video made you think twice about shopping alone, smash that like button and subscribe for more true horror stories that will change how you see the world around you. Drop a comment below and share your own experiences. Have you ever noticed something that didn't feel right during a late-night shopping trip? Have you ever felt watched, followed, or threatened in a place that was supposed to be safe? Share your story. You might not be as alone as you think. Your experience might help someone else recognize danger before it's too late. Because the truth is, they're always watching, they're always waiting, and they know exactly when you're most vulnerable. The lights are bright, but the shadows are darker than you can imagine. In those shadows, things are happening that would make you question everything you believe about safety, normalcy, and the places where we live our everyday lives. The next time you hear those automatic doors slide open in the middle of the night, remember that you're not just entering a store, you're entering their world. And once you're inside, once you've seen what they don't want you to see, you become part of the story whether you want to or not. Sleep well, and remember to always check your surroundings, because they're closer than you think.